Oh. Okay. Start recording. Okay, good. Nearly 7:03 here. Time for us to get started. There are probably still a few more people joining us. There are a couple of people who joined us on YouTube. So thank you everyone for joining today. We've got 3 sessions today. First of all, we've got Brennon again, who already started presenting on Teams rooms during our last call in July. He's going to continue with that today. Following him is then a guest from Hungary, Agnes Molnar. She's going to talk about Microsoft Search and beyond, so how you can use Search in Microsoft 365. Very excited to have her present to us here today. And finally, I'm going to finish with a very short overview and intro to Microsoft lists. Well, it's something that's not quite here yet, while it's still in rollout. I thought it's a good point to actually just get everyone's attention to it, and let's just have a quick look at what it can do. And with that, I'm already handing over to Brennon to get things started.
Okay, thank you, Rene, and good evening or afternoon, wherever you are. So I'm Brennon. So I'm going to cover 20 minutes of best practices managing Teams room systems. And this is part 2 of this session. I actually covered part 1 in the previous user group meeting. So I'd like to continue with part 2 this time around. So let's get started. Once again, Teams Room really is the solution, meeting room solution that provides the native Teams experience, bringing the high definition audio, video, and content sharing to the meeting room. Right? And I know that probably many of us are working from home today, or rather in a flexi working mode. But sometimes we do go to the office for those important meetings. And of course, good to say that it's safe to say that at some point in time in the future, this pandemic will be under control and people will be going back to the offices. And that's where they will start to use those meeting rooms. So Teams Room is really a great solution for those meeting rooms that provides you with a touchscreen panel on PC with a compute unit running the Microsoft Teams Room application. And so users can come in there, see the meeting, they can click on the join button, straight away join into the meeting, and then away they go to collaborate on audio, video, and content sharing itself. So there are many Teams Room solutions in the market available today. I'm not going to go into details. So this is just a quick introduction for those who are don't really know what Teams Room is. It's actually a physical device that sits in a meeting room that provides an awesome meeting room experience for the native Microsoft Teams environment. Okay. So there are different vendors providing the solution today, and you can look them individually at their website. But what I'm going to cover today really is about the best practices in managing Teams Room solution. But first, let's have an update that Microsoft just released a new version of the Teams Room application back in last month, right, 20th of last month to be exact. And a couple of days later, I think many of you or many of the people in many of these devices in those meeting rooms would have been automatically updated, or if not manually updated as well. And if you're not sure how to do the manual updates, do check out our previous session of managing Teams Room system, where I actually talk about the software updates. But for this particular update, there's a couple of very exciting new features that Microsoft actually introduced. The first one you see there is the Cisco WebEx Meetings Join. So it's really provide a way to interrupt for Teams room systems with WebEx meetings. So with this feature, then anyone can create a WebEx meeting, right? Can send a meeting invitation to the Teams rooms system, and it will present itself with a join button, and you can actually join the meeting directly, a WebEx meeting directly from Teams room. And this is all available free of charge at no additional cost to you, as long as you already have Teams room license with the Teams room device, and the organizer already has a WebEx meeting license as well. So other things that's included in this is actually also the ability to manage the team room solution from the Teams admin center itself. That's really a big thing that we'll talk about later on. Support for Windows 10 and some other features in there, like raising hands and doing calling users in a federated environment. And then at the bottom there, you see a PowerShell command. This is actually a command that you would run to actually enable your MTR solution running this latest version to accept WebEx meetings, right? If you enable this and you enable the WebEx meeting invitations on the Teams room itself, you'll be able to receive WebEx invitations and able to join those meetings, right? And you can read more about this particular release in the URL that I provide up there. It's actually the release notes for this particular device. So here's what it looks like when you actually have a WebEx meeting that's being sent into a Teams room. So here I've got my colleague to send my Microsoft Teams room solution a WebEx meeting invitation. As you can see that it appears as in the calendar in the home screen of the touch panel, and I can see it's a WebEx meeting. It's got a WebEx logo on it, and I can just click on the join button, right, to just simply join this meeting directly into the WebEx meeting. Now, under the hood, it's actually using the Chromium browser stack that's built into this particular new release of Teams Room, using and joining the meeting via the WebRTC protocols, right? But to the end user, it's really quite seamless. They just click on the join button and they straight away get connected into the Teams meeting. And what you'll see on the touch console is actually a WebEx meeting. It shows you that you're in a WebEx meeting. And then one of the things that you see there, you can control the volume. You can obviously turn on and off your video or mute and unmute your microphone. But you notice one thing missing from this MTR solution is that there is no ability to actually share content, right? So at this current version, you're only able to receive content from the WebEx invitation, from the WebEx meeting, but not able to send meeting. But I'm sure that this is going to be addressed sometime in the future as well. So here's what it looks like when you're in a meeting. So I've got my colleague online. He's on a WebEx call, using WebEx to join using a PC. And I've got the meeting ongoing on my MTR solution, the Teams Room solution. And the audio quality and the video quality is great, right? And not only do I see and hear him very well, I can also see content that's being shared as well. So I got my colleague to just share a sample presentation, and away I go, I get to see that content itself, okay? So I've also have the ability to actually switch the display from the main display and move it down to the touch panel itself. So if you see there is a little icon, a switch at the bottom left-hand corner here, that allows me to actually, if I turn it on, then it will actually replicate the display, whatever I see on the main display, onto the touch console display as well. So really cool feature that Microsoft has built into this particular version for WebEx. So interoperability is only going to get better. So WebEx is one of the first ecosystems that the MTR will support natively, and there will be more ecosystems that's going to be added on in the future as well. And you can look out for that from the Microsoft roadmap. Another thing that they updated is actually the Teams Room licensing. So we've known all the while we've got this Team Room license that's $15 a month. It gives you all the licenses that you need to run this kind of Teams Room solution. And it comes with all the necessary licenses, but it's really much more cost effective than a regular E1 or E3 or E5 license. Yet this particular $15 license has got the PSTN calling features as well as all the meeting join features as well. Microsoft has also introduced the Teams Room Premium license SKU. This is at $50 a month, and it includes all of the features that's provided in the standard SKU. but it includes the management solution as well. So if a customer uses this particular solution, Teams Room solution, and does not want to manage the solution themselves, they can actually get the premium SKU, which includes the management service included with that license, right? So you can just let the experts from Microsoft and their partners handle all of the management, the policies, the monitoring and remediation, all these things all covered within that $50 a month SKU, right? So you can read more about this as well in the link there in the blog that talks a lot about this new premium SKU that Microsoft has launched together with their partners. Now, this particular premium SKU in Asia Pacific is currently only available in Australia and New Zealand. I'm sure over time it will be added to additional APAC countries as well. So I talked about the Teams Admin Center. So this is actually what it will look like. If you log into the Teams Admin Center right now, you'll be able to see your Teams Room solution along with all the other team meeting room devices like Surface Hub and phones as well and collab bars. And then you'll be able to track and manage your inventory, apply actions like settings and restarting the devices, and you'll be able to, for example, inspect the health status. Of course, for the MTR, you will need the latest update that was provided by Microsoft last month. So when you switch over to the Teams Admin Center, this is the Teams Admin Center in my tenant. So if I navigate down to the devices, you can see that I've got phones, I've got Teams Rooms, and I've got collab bars in here. So all that I need to manage my Teams Room solutions and my phones are all included within the Teams Admin Center here. So I click on Teams Room, I can see my MTR system. That's going to be allow me to then manage the solution. So first of all, it's obviously going to give me a summary. Tells me that the device is healthy, right? Manufacturer is from HP, and it's actually I can actually select this thing, and if I wanted to restart, I can just click on the restart button. But I can actually drill down into the actual room itself to manage the system. For example, here I can look at the things like downloading the device logs, right? If I wanted to troubleshoot in more detail, and also look at all the peripherals that are actually attached to this particular device. So I've got the compute unit itself, I've got the content cameras, I've got the room cameras, I've got the speaker phones. All this shows me that it's connected and it's healthy. So that's really good news. All lights are green means it's all good to go. All right. And then I can look at the health itself of the system itself, right? Of all the different components. Again, it also gives me the connectivity itself, right? Not just the peripherals, but also connectivity to Exchange, to Microsoft Teams, to Skype for Business, and the software itself. You can see I'm running the latest 4.5.35.0 release. So all this information is very useful when you want to troubleshoot any potential issues with the device, and you don't even have to walk over to the device. You can just do it all from here, the Teams Admin Center. If you want a little bit more advanced, you can actually drill down into all the activities, which actually shows you all the different meetings that it was involved in. For example, right today at 11:20 a.m., I actually had a meeting with 2 participants. It actually shows me a lot of detail in terms of who the participants are, what kind of session it was conducted. Here you can see that it's got video, desktop sharing, audio quality was good. There was 2 meetings, there was no issue found. So it was really good, right? So I can actually drill down even further if I wanted to and go into, look into the particular call itself. So it gives me all of the capture devices, video rendering devices. I can look at the system in summary, right? I can look at the connectivity, right? And also look at the network, and it was good. And a lot of the advanced features are also available here, right? So if I wanted to drill down and look at a lot of this jitter and packet loss, potentially, if I had any, it would be as a result of any issues would have been a result of either a packet loss or too high a jitter rate, or round trip time being too long, right? So these things I can actually troubleshoot from within the Teams Admin Center itself. And going to the advanced, I can even drill down even further down to the different media modalities, audio input and audio output, really very detailed. And I won't have time to go into every single of these, but it's really good to know that it provides you a very detailed way to actually troubleshoot any potential problems, and really gives you the ability to really overall manage your device very well from within the Teams Admin Center. So moving on, this is the roadmap that Microsoft has provided publicly, and you can search this using the Microsoft website. You can go to aka.ms/Office 365 roadmap, and you can find all these features that are in there. So Microsoft certainly has a very robust roadmap for their Teams Room solution. So you've got the additional capabilities that's going to be built into Teams Admin Center. There's going to be a room remote application that will run on iOS and Android devices that allow you to control the meeting room. It's going to be things like support for Cortana voice assistant, wireless content sharing. That's also one of the great features that will come. Coordinated meetings between Surface Hub and Teams. And of course, meeting room capacity notifications. That's actually very useful for post-COVID-19 era, where, even though your users are going back to the office, you want to enforce things like safe distancing, and you want to limit the amount of people that can actually be in a meeting room. So this meeting room capacity notification is very useful to notify the participants or even the administrator that there are too many people in the meeting room. Okay, so all these features are coming in development and they're expected to be available later this year. So certainly very exciting itself. And the last part of this is actually I want to cover out on the PowerShell command. Now it's great to be able to manage it from the graphical user interface, but there are certain things, certain times, or certain situations where you want to actually run the PowerShell commands to actually gather a lot of information. Right? For example, here are some commands that you can run on the Teams MTR solution, the Teams Rooms system itself. So you will log in as administrator. You can actually run these commands to grab a list of connected devices and display devices and peripherals that are connected in there. And it actually shows you the status and whether it's present or not. All right. So if it's disconnected, it will show you that it's that it's not present. Right. So it will actually show you if maybe some of the cables are being disconnected by accident, or someone actually pulled the cables out for some reason, and this will be able to show you that there's some disconnect there and allow you as the administrator to actually go and remedy that situation. Okay. Other things you can do is, like, for example, get information regarding the system itself, the version that it's running on, the BIOS version, right? Maybe it's a very old version and you need to upgrade the BIOS. That's a good way to actually check that. Other PowerShell commands include things like, this is actually what I covered previously. This is actually, you can actually manually upgrade the software on the Teams Room solution. By running this command, you actually it forces the system to upgrade to the latest version. Of course, you have to first download the latest software from the Microsoft website. And once you download it, you can actually put it onto a share. And then you can log on then to the MTR solution and actually run this PowerShell command. And it will actually specify where you have installed where you have downloaded the software from Microsoft, and you actually go and do the processing and upgrade the software on the system, right? But even if you don't do this, the Teams Room solution is automatically configured or scheduled to run an update check at 2 a.m. every night, right? So if you just leave your MTR solution up and running overnight, very likely it will be upgraded the following day, okay? But this is in case you don't want to do the automatic update, you want to initiate a manual update, you can run this PowerShell command as well. And all this is actually documented in the Teams documentation. So running all these commands is great, but you also want to be able to actually run it remotely, so you don't have to actually physically go into the Teams Room system and log in as administrator before you can run those commands. In fact, all of the commands that you saw there, with the exception of the update, you can actually run the PowerShell command remotely from the admin PC, right? So here you can see you can enable remote management on the MTR by running the enable PS remoting command, right? Skipping the network profile check, because if you don't, they will give you some, you will be unhappy. It will give you some complaints about the network profiles. And then once you enable that, you can actually enable PS remoting on your admin PC itself, and then add the MTR solution or any wildcard into the trusted host by running this command set item, all right, wsman, all right, and then once you do that, you can actually run those PowerShell commands as you saw earlier on. Okay, so going to just give you just example. This is actually running the PowerShell commands. As in, let me just run the PowerShell itself and just pick up a couple of commands that you can run. So here I've got it enabled, so I can actually run this command to get information on my Teams Room system right beside me right now. So just copy this command and paste it here. I paste it. Oops, that's not the correct one. cancel this, copy this again. Okay. Just one example before I hand over. So here I can paste it, and then once I click enter, it will prompt me for the credentials, which is normal. So I can just enter in the password for my local admin that's running on the MTR system. And it's actually going to run the command remotely and return me the results here on my admin PC. So I don't have to actually be physically on the machine to actually run all these commands, PowerShell commands. So again, another example, if I were to run another example to get all of the connected peripherals, again, I can run this remotely on my PC and it will return me all those status of all the devices that's running in there. And last but not least, if I wanted to shut down the machine, I can also run the shutdown command, just go into the run the shutdown and go to command to do a shutdown of the PC. In this case, I'm doing a reboot. So I'm actually going to paste this reboot command and let it actually go ahead and actually reboot my MTR system. So very easy, all done remotely from remote PowerShell. So just to wrap up this session, PowerShell command that if any point in time you need to actually log a ticket with Microsoft support for any issues that you can't resolve by yourself, and most likely they will ask you to run some commands to collect logs. And here's a script that is provided within the Teams Room solution itself. It's built into Teams Room. So all you need to do is to log in as the administrator and run this command. It will actually collect a lot of logs and put it into the local drive, where you can then actually copy it out and actually send it to Microsoft support engineers for them to troubleshoot. All right. So pretty much that's a quick 20-minute, part 2 of the Teams managing Teams Room system. Hopefully it's been helpful for you. And in the following month, I would like to cover off on optimizing your network for Teams Room solution. All right. So with that, I would like to hand this time back to Rene to kick off the second session for this evening. So over to you, Rene.
All right, and I think with that I can directly hand over to Agnes to get started. No need to wait much longer.
Hi, Agnes.
Thank you, Rene. Thank you, Brennon. Thank you, everyone. And I am really excited to be here, at least virtually, with you. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. My name is Agnes Molnar. And checking the list of attendees, there are a couple of familiar names, so maybe a couple of you already know me, but maybe others don't. So my name is Agnes Molnar, and I live in Central Europe, in Hungary. And I've been working with SharePoint from the very, very beginning back in 2001. And my primary focus has been on search and everything related to search. And a couple of years ago, I founded my own consulting company called Search Explained. And in a nutshell, this is what we do. We explain how search works in SharePoint on-prem and also in Microsoft 365. I've been Microsoft MVP for 13 years now. I am also a regional director as well. And I have a really strong connection to Singapore, actually. I spend a lot of time in your country and I love Singapore, I can tell you. I have clients there and I really miss being there. I was there last time in February, but last year I spent over 6 weeks in Singapore. So I really hope that I can be back there physically very soon. Yes, I speak at a lot of conferences around the world. I have clients in Singapore and also in the US these days, but also in Western Europe and in other countries. I am also a board member of the Innovation in Knowledge Organization Conference, which is an annual conference. In most years, it's in Singapore. So we are really hoping that we can do it next year again. All right. So today what I would like to talk about is search in Microsoft 365 and the different options we have and the pros and cons of each. Unfortunately, there is no one right answer, or there is no one right option to choose. And one thing I would like to ask you, because we cannot be in the same room and we cannot have real in-person discussion today, is that number one, if you have any question, just please don't hesitate to interrupt me at any time. You can use the Teams chat window if you like, so I'm following that on my screen, or you can unmute yourself and interrupt me at any time. I appreciate if you have any question, really anytime. Okay, and of course at the end of the session you will also have time and opportunity to ask your questions if you like. One more thing, right now we are having a thunderstorm here in Hungary, so if you can hear some weird noises, that's the storm. I closed all the windows and doors around myself, but there is a chance that you still can hear it. It's not as crazy as the storms can be in Singapore, but still it's quite loud right now. Okay, so search. Let me start with a little bit of historical overview to understand more of where we are and why we are there right now. Back in 2008, Microsoft acquired a company called Fast Enterprise Search, and at that time the version of SharePoint was 2007, and the goal of this acquisition was to improve search in SharePoint and to provide a real enterprise search solution in SharePoint. So therefore, after this acquisition, Microsoft started to integrate fast search into SharePoint. And this is what we saw first in SharePoint 2010, but in SharePoint 2010 the integration was not 100% done yet. Therefore, we had a separate product which was called Fast Search for SharePoint. Fast Search for SharePoint was a separate product. You had to install it on separate servers. It was a separate license, and you could configure SharePoint to use Fast Search for SharePoint for search, and in this case you could use this enterprise search engine in SharePoint. So whenever a user did a search in SharePoint, the results came from Fast Search for SharePoint. But of course, Microsoft kept working on the integration, and by the next version of SharePoint, in SharePoint 2013, the integration was done. And this means that in SharePoint 2013 and every version after that, there is no separate Fast Search for SharePoint product. What we can see there is that Fast Search for SharePoint is integrated to SharePoint, and therefore we can use it out of the box. You don't need to install it separately. You don't need to license it separately. So if you have SharePoint, that's the integrated search engine that you have. And also that was the time when SharePoint Online was born. And this is actually where you know Office 365 started to work, and Online and SharePoint Online also had a search feature. Of course, this is not the end of the story yet, because we had new versions of SharePoint on-prem in the future, SharePoint 2016 and SharePoint 2019. However, if you were working with those versions of SharePoint and Search, you know that SharePoint 2013 and SharePoint 2016 and also SharePoint 2019, all of those three have this very same search engine. So no improvements, no enhancements. The only one improvement is about the performance of search, but no new functionality, no new user interface elements, nothing. So if you know how search works in SharePoint 2013, then you know how search works in SharePoint 2016 and SharePoint 2019 as well. So where are the changes then? The changes are, of course, in the cloud. And we have an option we still have an option in the cloud, which is called a hybrid search, which means you can connect your on-prem SharePoint and the cloud SharePoint online to provide results from both sources. But at the same time, of course, there are other and additional changes in the cloud as well. Now, number one improvement and big thing in the cloud has been the graph. The Microsoft Graph is added to the cloud. It provides relationships between you and the content and you and other users. And based on this graph of relationships, this feature can be used in search, of course, to discover content, and also in many other features and many other functions in Microsoft 365. And also this graph is the feature that provides search results in the new modern search in SharePoint Online, in Office.com, in Teams, and all of the Microsoft 365 applications, which I'm going to talk about in just a few minutes. But also Microsoft has other search features and search options as well. One of them is Azure Search. Azure Search is actually a search as a service that you can host in Azure in the cloud, and it is based on Elasticsearch, which means it is not related to Microsoft 365. It is a totally different technology, and of course it can be used in totally different ways. We are not going to talk about Azure Search today, but it's important that you know that this is also an option and this is also an offering from Microsoft. And of course, we have Bing. Bing is the public internet search engine by Microsoft. One of my clients told me Bing is the Google of Microsoft, which is a kind of true. So you can use Bing for search to search for public content. Yes, but we also have Bing for Business, which provides results from your Microsoft 365 tenant, and I'm going to show you that as well. And the topic today is basically Microsoft Search, and Microsoft Search is the unified search experience in Microsoft 365 based on the Microsoft Graph, of course. And I'm saying unified because like 2 years ago, if you opened up different applications in Office 365, like SharePoint, Office.com, Office clients or Outlook or anything else, they each had a different search user experience. They each had different search user interface and everything. So Microsoft realized that this is a problem. So they started to work on a concept to unify it and provide a unified experience for the users regardless of where they are in Microsoft 365. So this is what we can see today. Let me show you actually a demonstration on my tenant, and I really hope that that the demo gods will be with me today. Okay, let me. All right, so I am on my tenant now, and we are going to focus on search, and just a few introduction for now. So first, the screen that you can see right now is office.com. And in office.com, if I click to the search box, I immediately get suggestions, and those suggestions are called the zero query suggestions. Of course, if I start typing in my query, then I get other suggestions. So for example, here a site is suggested to me. If I search for something else, then documents are suggested to me, or site, or also people can be suggested, etc., etc. The thing here is that those suggestions are based on a Microsoft Graph, which means it's all personalized. It's all about you. It's about your recent activities. It's what you have been working on recently, who you have been working with recently. So don't be surprised if the suggestions that you can see and the suggestions that other users in the same organization on the same tenant can see are different. This is because of the permissions, what you have access to, and also, as I said, it's based on the Microsoft Graph. So, so basically, it's personalized to you. If I hit enter here, I get to the search results pages, and you can see I have a highlighted content right here, which is actually a location. I'm going to show it to you what it is in just a minute. And I can switch to different search verticals. Those verticals are basically showing files, they are showing sites, they would show people here, news, and also these days you can use connectors, and you can connect Office 365 search to other content sources. For example, in this case, it is connected to our website. So if I do any, if I do a search which is more meaningful, then I get real results from our public website here. So as you can see, this is a generic everything kind of search, and you can connect it to different sources these days as well. So this is how it looks like in office.com. If I switch to SharePoint, you will see that that the user experience is somewhat similar. So I can see results if I search for something here. One thing to know is that if you are on a SharePoint site, then you get results from the SharePoint site. If you are in a SharePoint hub site, then you get results from the SharePoint hub site. So it's all context sensitive. It knows where you are, and also it knows who you are. You can expand search to everything, to the whole tenant, to the whole organization by clicking on the organization on top, and then we are back to the previous screen. Okay, so this is how you can work with that. Also, let me come back here and search for Office again. So I showed you that we have this map here. This is where our company is located, and if I zoom out, you can see we are somewhere in the middle of, almost in the middle of Europe. And this feature is called locations, but we also have other ways to display promoted or highlighted content to our users. So for example, if I search for search, then you can see that this is a kind of bookmark on top of the search results. So I can display promoted or highlighted content here. If I do a search for, I don't know, event, then you can see that I have promoted result again. This is a URL pointing to our events page, but also it provides additional information that I am not traveling these days, obviously because of the travel restrictions due to the pandemic. So as you can see, there are different ways to provide those promoted or highlighted content or highlighted information to the users. I'm going to show you how to create those. But first, let me show you one more thing, which is in Bing. As you know, Bing is the public search engine by Microsoft. So if I do a search, then I can use it. For example, if I'm searching for Singapore, then you can see I get all those results, information, pictures, map of the country, and all of travel information, tourist information, all of those things. However, you can see on the top right corner that I am logged in to our Office 365 tenant now, which means it is known who I am again. So what Microsoft does is the Bing search engine, it communicates to the Microsoft 365 tenant and can get results from the tenant. So if I search for Office again, you can see that it displays the same map as it displayed in office.com. How does it do that? It gets the map and it gets the information from the Microsoft 365 tenant. And also, there is a link here, see all results from search explained. This is our tenant. And also, you can see that there is a security trimmed tab work here. What does it mean? Of course, if you do the same search on Bing.com right now, you do not have access to this map, or you do not have access to these results here. Why? Because those are in our tenant, in the search explained tenant. You can see results from your organization's tenant if Microsoft Search is enabled there, but everything is security trimmed there. So don't worry, nothing is published to the web, nothing is opened up publicly. This is because Bing as a search engine communicates to the tenant and displays information from your tenant to you because you are logged into that tenant. Okay, so this is a way to display information. And again, if I search and if I filter for sites, if I filter for files, everything I see here is from our tenant, and this is how Bing is integrated with the tenant. And also it displays the same location in this case, or if I search for event, it displays the same information that Agnes is not traveling these days. Okay, so this integration is happening on your tenant. Okay, how does it look like? Let me go back to the admin center, and in the admin center under settings there is a setting for Microsoft Search, This is where you can find all those settings for the integration. First, of course, you have to enable this feature, but once the feature is enabled, then you can go to those settings here. You can see a couple of very basic insights or analytic information here about the impressions and how your users have been using search. If you go to answers, those are the things that can be displayed as promoted results or promoted information in search. So for example, if I go to locations, you can see that there is a location defined for search explained. Here is the address. Let me open it. Here is the address, here is the geographical location information, and those are the keywords. So if I search for office, then I get this information to be displayed. This is how we display the map, the location. Also, if you have an organization with multiple locations or large office buildings or multiple office buildings, you can add floor plans. And on the floor plan, you can search for meeting room locations or office locations, and you can search for example, where Rene is sitting, and then you can see on the floor plan that Rene is sitting on the 3rd floor in this office, and this is how you can go there. So this can also help a lot if your building is large or if you have multiple buildings in your organization. Bookmarks are those highlighted or promoted results. In SharePoint Classic or SharePoint On-Prem, we can create the similar experience by creating query rules to promote those results. And again, you can see that this promoted result has a URL. We have a description and also a couple of keywords, so that if someone does a search for those keywords, then this information will be displayed to the user. Acronyms are a new feature. Unfortunately, this one still does not work properly on this tenant. So this means that if I search for an acronym like CPH, then the query would be expanded to Copenhagen, so that I cannot demo it right now because it unfortunately doesn't work for some reason, but you can imagine how it works in this case. And the last thing I wanted to show you here is the Q&A, and this was in my demo, this was what displayed this little airplane picture and the information that Agnes is not traveling these days due to the travel restrictions. This is called a Q&A, and the Q&A is basically very similar to a bookmark, but it can be more visual, and also it can handle natural language queries a little bit more. So instead of searching for events, I can search for where is Agnes or where is Agnes traveling or something like that, and you can see the same experience. So those are the different type of answers that Microsoft Search can provide you. As I said, those are very similar to query rules in SharePoint On-Prem or in SharePoint Classic Search. However, they provide different types of answers with different features, with different options. So in the end, we have probably a richer experience here. I'm pretty sure that many of you are interested in the connectors as well. So as you could see, if I did a search for something, I had, for example, I don't know, taxonomy. I have an additional tab on search for our public website, and you can see that all of those results are coming from our public website. So those connections are created under the connectors here. As far as I know, the connectors feature is still rolling out. So if you cannot see this feature on your tenant, don't panic. Probably it did not hit your tenant yet, but it's coming very soon. So you will see it very soon. If I open a connector, then let me edit this one. And you can see that there are connection settings that I can configure. In this case, this is quite easy, our website's URL. I can add URLs to exclude if I want it, which can be very useful if you don't want to search the admin pages, for example, or in a public website, it can be the category or the tags pages. Or anything else that you don't want to crawl here. Under Manage the Schema, you can see the source properties, basically, and those are the properties that could be extracted from the source. In this case, from the website, those properties could be extracted, and those could be understood by the search engine. So, for example, each post on our website has a title, has a URL, has some keyword, description, and of course the content itself. And you can define what can be done by those properties if you want to display them, if you want them to be searchable or queryable, then this is where you can do that. Search permissions, of course, in case of our public website doesn't make too much sense, but if you connect Microsoft 365 Search to any system that that has security trimming and where security trimming of the results is important, then this is where you can configure that. How often you want to refresh, recrawl the content. In this case, it is set to be 1 day, and in the last screen, you can review the settings and finish creating, or in this case, updating the connection. So it's quite straightforward. Of course, if you have the other types of content to be connected to, for example, ServiceNow, for example, I don't know, Salesforce or a FileShare, then those configuration settings or configuration steps might be somewhat different, but this is the basic flow, this is the basic process to do that configuration. Okay. Basically, this is what I wanted to show you about the default out-of-the-box Microsoft Search, what we have everywhere and on every tenant. But as I said at the beginning of my presentation, this is not all, and we have more options, and there is no one-size-fits-all. So some of you might be still interested in Classic Search. Classic Search is the search that we know from SharePoint On-Prem, SharePoint 2013, 2016, or 2019. And we still do have Classic Search in Microsoft 365. However, there are two things that you have to know. One, there is no improvements or any enhancements in Classic Search in the last six plus years, which does a lot. And also Microsoft is already committed to invest into Microsoft Search, the modern search, and not to invest anything into classic search. Which means if you use classic search today in SharePoint Online, then you can keep using it. However, if you are new and if you don't use classic search yet, I would not recommend to invest anything into classic search. The question is, why would you do that? So why someone needs something like classic search if we have that out-of-the-box Microsoft Search options? The primary reason most of the organizations invested into classic search is that you can customize and configure. You can customize classic search, but there is no way to customize Microsoft Search as of today. Microsoft has been communicating that customizations are coming, but it's still not there. And they have been promising this for over 2 years now. Microsoft Search is getting better and better, of course, but customizing the user interface is still not possible. What does it mean? You cannot create your custom filters or custom refiners in Microsoft Search. You cannot create your custom verticals. If you remember, I had those out-of-the-box verticals, like everything, sites, documents, and web, people, news, and web, but I cannot add my own. For example, if I would like to show HR content only, I cannot do that. If I want to show only end user documentation from different sites, I cannot do that. Okay, so it is not possible. If you need this functionality, Microsoft Search is not providing this feature yet. So if you need custom filters, custom verticals, or custom display of the results, or any customization on the user interface, then you need something else. And this something else is what many organizations implemented by using classic search. And the benefit for classic search is that it has been in SharePoint Online for forever. So if you moved to the cloud like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, you were already able to do that, and you were able to implement classic search on your tenant. And definitely this used to be a huge benefit. But as I said, classic search is a kind of legacy. Microsoft is trying to convince everybody to move to modern and not use classic anymore, no more updates, no more enhancements. So we have something that is nice and beautiful and fancy, but cannot be customized. And the other way, the classic search can be customized, but a kind of legacy and no more improvements. However, there is one more thing that we can use, and I'm going to show this option to you in just a second. And this option is called the PnP Modern Search. The PnP Modern Search is basically a PnP library which you can download from GitHub. It is free. It is absolutely supported by Microsoft. It is developed by MVPs and also Microsoft. And it can be added as an additional library to SharePoint Online, and you can use it to create customized search pages. So let me show you how it looks like by going back to my tenant. So I have this site on my tenant, and I have added an additional search box to this page. And if I do a search for Denmark here, for example, I am redirected to a page, which is actually a search page. And you can see I have many search results here, I can use filters and I can filter by the country. I did a search for Denmark, but the search engine goes to, to the title of the document, to the content of the document, to the different properties of the document. And in this case, I've got 34 results. But this means the word Denmark could be found in the title or in the content or in some properties. So if I want to search for documents that are about Denmark, that are tagged with the country Denmark, then I can filter for Denmark here. And then you can see that instead of 34 results, I have those 10 results which are each tagged with Denmark. And of course, I can use this search box. So if I want to search for Sweden instead, I can do that right on this page. Again, the result set, how the results are being displayed can be customized. You can add your custom search verticals, etc., etc. And one more nice thing about it is that if you check the URL of this page, I am workshop demo /site pages /PnP demo search page right now. So let me go back to the home of this site. And if I do a search from here for Sweden again, I hit enter here and I am redirected to the same page. Okay, so this is not the out of the box Microsoft search experience. This is not what I get out of the box from Microsoft. What does it mean? It means that you can customize where the main search box on the top suite bar will redirect the users. If you like Microsoft Search, that's great, you can use it. But also if you create a customized search center or a search page, you can redirect the search right there from the top suite bar search box or any search boxes as well. As you could see, I used this search box for the same. Okay, so for until now, we have 3 options: Microsoft Search, out of the box, Classic Search, and the PnP Modern Search. So let me show you which one can be used when, because this is a somewhat important information. So as I said, Classic Search is out of the box. It can be found on every tenant. You can use it if you like. It can be customized, but at the same time, it is legacy, which means no more updates, no more improvements, no more enhancements. The Microsoft Search, or the Modern Search, as many knows, is also out of the box. It can be found in every application in Microsoft 365, including the clients, including Outlook, including Office.com, SharePoint, Teams, everywhere. Today, it cannot be customized. And I'm saying today because Microsoft keeps saying that it's coming. So sooner or later, hopefully, we will see that. It is modern, so it fits really nice to your modern sites and your modern experience in Microsoft 365. It is updated regularly. Sometimes we can see new features and new improvements every week. So it's really, really updated quite often. You have no control about those updates, which might be good or might be bad, which means those updates are led and driven by Microsoft. So they are pushed to your tenant. You cannot customize, okay, I would like to have the new updates on the 1st of January next year or something like that. But at the same time, it's not your responsibility, it's not your task to do. So as I said, it might be good or bad at the same time. And the last option that I showed you is the PnP Modern Search. The PnP Modern Search can show content from SharePoint Online and from OneDrive. It has to be deployed from the PnP library. So you have to do that manually. It is not out of the box. It is not on your tenant until you deploy it. The primary benefit of the PnP Modern Search library is that it can be customized. You can do and you can use it. You can create a custom search page or even a custom search center by using the PnP web part library if you like. And this is also updated regularly. And since this is a PnP library, the PnP team is monitoring the comments and feedbacks and the bugs quite often. So if you see something or if you find something, then you can let them know, and they are going to respond. They are going to fix if this is a bug very soon. And again, it might be good or bad, but it is your responsibility to deploy the solution to your tenant. Well, this is what I wanted to show you. I can see one question in Teams, but if you have more or anything else, I am more than happy to answer your questions. And that question is, I can see Q and also key parameter in the query string, sorry. Yes, basically there are multiple parameters that can be used. In this case, I am using the key parameter. In other cases, you can use the Q parameter. It's a kind of confusing which one to use. In most cases, you can see both of them are present in Microsoft Search, or so. But in PnP, you can use any of them. So it's quite flexible, and you can configure which one you want to use. Okay, if there is, I don't know if there is any other question, just.
Yes, I have a question, Agnes. Behind the Teams work SharePoint and search box in Teams is very, very simple. Mm-hmm. The question is, do you have some information regarding integrating search as we know in SharePoint in Teams? Because the behind Teams is standard SharePoint. Also, when I have many files in Teams and I use the search box, is not comfortable.
Yes. Basically, what I know and what I can share with you is Microsoft is aware of this problem and they are working on this. Basically, the search results in Teams are already displayed based on the Microsoft Graph. The user experience and the user interface is still not there yet. I know it is, well, I would say the Teams search is useless in most cases. So my recommendation would be you can add a new tab to your Teams channels where you can help the users to find their content. And yes, the content is stored in SharePoint, so it could be an easy SharePoint content search or document search. This is the best workaround we have been using in most of my clients, to add the new tab to the Teams channels until the Teams search does not provide any better experience for files and documents. I know it's a big problem, yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? Feel free to unmute yourself or ask in the chat.
There is a question in the chat. Do we still have issues in Microsoft Search in other variation languages like Chinese? To be honest, I don't speak Chinese at all. I use content in German and also in Hungarian language. It's much better today as it used to be like a year ago in those languages. As I said, I cannot tell you anything about the Chinese language, but in other languages like German, Hungarian, it's much better today than it used to be. I cannot see any further questions at the moment, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen and hand over back to you, Rene. Thank you again for inviting me, and yeah, if you have any questions, just drop me a message. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Agnes. Thank you for coming and presenting to us here. Okay, so 8:30 now. I'm just going to quickly continue with my very short mini session. Don't think it will take longer than 15 or 20 minutes. And then I think we can also stop relatively early today. So let me just share my screen. That's the one. No, something went wrong. Here we go. Okay, so what I want to do is just give you a quick overview of Microsoft Lists. So Microsoft Lists is one of the newest apps available in Microsoft 365. And I just want to give you an idea of what it actually is, what it can do, where it comes from, and just give you a very quick demo. And also explain why we don't see much more right now, actually, why it's just a short thing. So what is Lists actually? It's the latest Microsoft 365 app. When you read basically the description on the left, it provides a simple, smart, and flexible way to organize, work, and track information. Again, lists doesn't sound very fancy. And when you think about lists in Office 365 or Microsoft 365, you immediately start to think about, hey, in SharePoint, there are lists. What's the difference between SharePoint lists and these lists here? So what we see here, the new Microsoft Lists actually builds on SharePoint lists. So it takes existing knowledge about how do lists work in SharePoint, that functionality, and provide some additional functionality. So you can use those lists again through a central lists home. That's something that we don't have right now. For example, lists are bound to a specific size, but here now you can actually pin your favorite lists, for example, from different sites, from different locations. You can see a recent list and such. You can leverage all in Teams, which can partially also done with existing SharePoint lists. And you can also use some ready-made templates. And again, we already have templates, several list templates. But as we will see in a short while, actually, there's some really new great templates available that will provide a much better experience, basically, for people using it. Plus, we also see then, yeah, you can add rules and notifications. So again, obviously, nothing new here. So you can use Power Automate to basically add the flow, for example, behind it. Or you can use notifications, which is the alerts that we know already from SharePoint lists. So basically, in very simple words, it's SharePoint lists with a lot more and more to come. So Microsoft is investing a lot in this, and there's more to come here. And the main question right now actually is, when do you see lists? And that's also why I'm keeping this session relatively short. Microsoft is rolling it out right now, so they're not actually generally available yet for everyone right now. They started rolling them out actually end of last month. So yeah, 2 weeks ago, you could say, to targeted release customers. So those are tenant owners who've said, for example, within their tenant admin settings, I want to be one of those targeted release customers. I want to receive information early. That's still actually continuing right now. As we can see, they're targeting the 100% targeted release rollout by the end of August. I can confirm, for example, that I received the Microsoft lists icon in my tenant before, but lists didn't quite work yet. The icon has disappeared in the meantime. In my company tenant, we have lists if we try to access it through a special hidden URL, but the icon, basically, the quick link is not there yet. So in a way, basically, sometimes you can already use it, sometimes you might have it, but it's still rolling out again to some people. And the continuous rollout will actually continue. And as you can see, actually, overall, the rollout will still go on until end of October as expected. So within the next 2.5 months, we should then finally all have our Microsoft lists. So before we skip over to jump over to the resources, I'm gonna go to, let me just find the right window, this one here. Where can we access Microsoft lists? So I mentioned the icon is not available to me right now. Icon meaning I go to the, for example, the Office 365 app launcher here. I look under apps, I don't see it here. I go to all apps. Still don't see it here, actually, the icon. So same thing actually here. I can see a lot of out-of-the-box apps, obviously, but lists is not here. However, I can still access lists. There's a small trick to it, and the trick is to go to your OneDrive. That's one way how you can check if you've got it available. And you can see here the URL, it ends with onedrive.aspx, so you can replace that with lists, lists.aspx. And that brings you to your lists home. That's where you can then see your existing lists. Let me just actually remove part of that. That's where you can see your lists. You can create new lists, manage everything. You can see you've got your recent lists at the bottom. You've got your favorites at the top. You can create new lists. And the reason why I was just hiding the recent list below is there are actually some company lists here. So I don't want them to be on display right now for everyone. But I can see I already created a list actually I created that a while ago, but 2 hours ago, I actually went in there to make a small change. So let's just have a very quick, again, 10-minute demo or so probably for lists. And if you've worked with SharePoint lists, I think there's not much that will surprise you. Let's get started with creating a new list. So when I click on new list, I've got 3 options. Blank list, again, coming from SharePoint, you want to create a blank list and do everything yourself. You can create one from Excel. So that's something we'll also look at in a moment. You've got an Excel spreadsheet where you've already got some data and you want to create a new list based on that existing data and import the data. Or, and that's the great thing, from an existing list. So you want to create a duplicate of an existing list, maybe make some further changes. That's how you can get started. And you also see here at the bottom, we've got existing templates. So not only can we start with blank list, Excel, or existing list, but there are also a couple of templates available that can be used straight away. So those are, as you can see here, there's 8 of them here: issue tracker, employee onboarding, etc., etc. And let me just actually click on issue tracker right now. So the great thing is we immediately get to see a preview of how that actually looks like, that list template. And we see what kind of columns are in there. So for the issue tracker, I see the issue, the description, priority, status. But when we look over here, obviously, again, the columns here that we see here, standard single line of text, multi-line text, nothing fancy. But when we start to look here at the right side, yeah, there's some nice new formatting here. So for example, status, while it might be a choice column here where we say blocked or in progress or duplicate, you can see actually, oh, it was actually nicely color-coded now. So you can see here it's actually looking a bit better. Also, priority has also been formatted a bit. So again, there has been a small improvement over here. We scroll a bit further to the right here. So we also see then basically if there's another thing that should be highlighted here, days old, for example, how old is that issue? And we can see, for example, there has also been a rule put in place so to notify, hey, oh, this issue, for example, is 40 days old. That's not so good. I'm not going to go through all the templates. If you've got lists in your tenant, you can look at them yourself. Some of them are, well, quite interesting. But just to show you what's possible, here again, we see, for example, the work progress tracker. Again, that brings us to the issue then, where do you track what needs to be done where? Do you use Planner? Do you use To-Do, work progress tracker? So Microsoft gives you a lot of options. Again, basically, that's just maybe a small thing where I want to say, yeah, I want to actually just plan some work here, and I want to have some different categories, want to see the progress. Those kind of things could also be done somewhere else, but can also be done here within that new list. Depends on a couple of things, but in a way, basically, it just gives you one more option. And what we can see here again is a different kind of formatting, just making it really nicer for people who want to use it. You get a better experience. Or let me just look at the asset manager. What we can see here is, hey, there are pictures of the actual assets. I can see, oh, there's actually a keyboard here. There's a tablet, there's a laptop. I can see directly here through that photo that's available here. There's the asset tag.
Daddy, can I watch up this?
Yeah.
This one.
Okay, can go. And again, basically a bit of additional formatting. And the same thing is actually for the other items here as well. Whenever we go in, the preview actually shows us, yeah, there's a bit of nicer formatting. So what I can do is, for example, is just actually take that asset manager. I'm quickly going to say I want to use this template. I can give it a title, a name basically. So I can say SG Office Asset Manager. Description, nothing fancy. Choose a color. That's what we see here on the basically in the preview for the list. So let's just actually just choose. Yeah, let's not choose blue. Let's just take orange. I can choose an icon. So there are a couple of icons, not too many, but I'm gonna choose. I don't know. It's just a package here, the cube, and I'm gonna save it to. And that's the interesting part. So what you can see here is at the top here. I can, by default, save it to my lists, but I can also actually save it to my recent sites. So you see I save it to my OneDrive for Business, or I can save it to a whole range of other SharePoint sites or sites that were created as part of a team that I accessed recently or that I was working with recently. So while I'm not even in the site, for example, or in the team, I can create a list directly over there based on the template that I choose here. I'm just going to create it now inside my list. Not going to go to a site view right now. Let's just quickly do create. And it's going to jump in and we can see here, oh, welcome to your new list. Looks quite nice here what we have. I can see here the different columns, and I can, as you can see, we've got a full screen view. I can create a new asset here, asset tag, SG1D125, device photo. I don't have anything available right now. Let's just actually status available, manufacturer. You can see basically, again, nothing too fancy here. You can see it's basically a SharePoint list that was in this case created directly in my OneDrive. If I had selected another location, it would have been created in the corresponding SharePoint site. And that's basically what we can leverage here. So Microsoft, again, is not reinventing the wheel, they're enhancing SharePoint lists in a way. Let me just see, I think I've got all the required information. I'm just going to quickly save this one. And we can see, oh, for example, status available is green, manufacturer is highlighted in red. So you can see there's some formatting here. Let me just actually go in here, column settings, format this column. And you can see, for example, there's already some formatting applied, but maybe I don't like this one here. I can actually also then, for example, go to the advanced mode. And when you see what's available here again, that's again building on existing knowledge, existing functionality. So custom formatting for SharePoint lists and columns basically has been around for a while. Don't ask me right now how long. Has been 2 or 3 years, I think. But that's available here. We can actually then modify what we can see here right now. That's something that's available, documented. So while it may look quite complex here right now, there are also ways how you can actually then work with that more easily. Either way, so I could actually go into advanced mode, modify a lot of things, create my own formatting here if required, Or I can just actually say, no, I actually want to do something different. Maybe this one here, nah, does look very nice. The conditional formatting, let's try this one. Okay, so you can see basically, yeah, I could actually play around with it and change the formatting. Same for all the others, actually. If I go to the asset type, well, just try again, format this column. I can do the same thing, format as pills. And we can see, oh, that's quite nice, actually. I can do the same thing now with quick edit. When we go to quick edit, again, there's nothing fancy here. It looks a bit nicer now when we see it here directly than a SharePoint list in default, current modern view. But again, there's nothing really that I would say is dramatically different to what we've seen previously. But it allows us to actually just go in here, as you can see here, and make our changes very easily and do something. So let me just actually add something. And I think I've got, yeah, excellent. All required information is there. Perfect. And I can exit my quick edit. I mentioned that we can also then add some rules and such things. So under automate, for example, I can say I want to create a rule. We can also see here, set a reminder. Let me just actually start create a rule. And we can see that's actually also something new. So create a rule is when data changes in the list. So when a column changes, I can get notifications. So not just, oh, an item changes somewhere, but I want to say, hey, if, for example, the status changes, then send an email to, again, for example, to a certain person, me, or an email address or person, or I can also say, for example, the created by, the modified by. That's actually quite nice. So you can actually then get notifications based on actions on an item, but not when anything in the item changes, only when a certain value, for example, changes. And we can also say when a column value changes to something. So also fancy when status is available, for example, send email to me. So, hey, I want to get notified when a certain asset becomes available again. I can get a notification here. That's quite nice. Actually, I can quickly add that. Yeah, as you can see here, there's more options here. I'm not going to go into more detail here, but you see here, there's a bit more that's happening. And the other thing I just wanted to show on the automate is that create a rule. Sorry, not create a rule. Set a reminder. So, for example, when I see, oh, there's a due date, I want to set a reminder for that due date. Loading. And again, basically, when something is due, then get an email reminder. So there's a flow that I would actually set up right now for notifications. Again, nothing fancy, but quite helpful to get it integrated directly here. Plus, obviously, I can use my own flow if I wanted to. So not just basically the default out of the box things, but I can create a more complex flow if required. I can add more conditions in there. I can add more actions in there, etc., etc. That's, again, standard out-of-the-box SharePoint list functionality already right now. And the same thing actually with export to Excel and share. So when we look at now, hey, that list is in my OneDrive, maybe I want other people to, no, I didn't want this one to access it. I can now easily share it with other people and say, I want to share it now with a different person here. So I can obviously find that person. I could then specify what they're allowed to do, take full control of that list, so manage it. Can they edit items, only view items, etc. So the share dialog is something that you should be quite familiar with. And what I can also do is then, now let me just open this again. I clicked it quickly. Under manage access, I can then also see then who are the people who currently have access to it, and then obviously then change that again as required. All right, so let me go back to lists because I want to show you something else. Here we go. So what I want to do is now under new list, we've seen now I created a list from a template. The only other thing I want to do is I want to create something from Excel. So what I have is here, I've got now another assets list that I previously had in Excel here, a list of our assets. Just add a status column, on loan, available, something here. And what we want to do is now we want to use this list here and or this table here and import it into our own Microsoft list. So I'm going to go and say from Excel. So I could choose something from my OneDrive or upload from this device. Let me just upload something from my desktop, assets, getting uploaded to OneDrive actually, and from there getting imported then. So loading the tables that are inside our spreadsheet. There's only one table, this one here, which is table 1 that I can select here. If there were more tables, then I could correspondingly select the other tables. And as you can see down here, it was analyzing the table, and now it's suggesting, title, for example, that's the name that should be used here, or that's the, let me just try, that's the title column that should be used here. The type should be a single line of text. I'm okay with that. Single line of text. I'm okay with that. Owner, yeah. I could now, as you can see, I can't actually choose the person, so not quite nice, but I'm going to choose a single line of text. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say I'm not going to import the owner. Let's do it this way, and I'm going to import the status. I'm just going to say that one is actually a choice and not a single line of text. Name is IT assets. Again, I'm choosing color. Let's choose green. Let's choose, I don't know, the piggy. Doing it into my lists again. Clicking on create, and what it does basically, it just takes the existing information from my spreadsheet and puts it into Microsoft lists here. It's just going to take a moment. So it's a bit similar to what we had previously also in SharePoint, where you could import from spreadsheet, but whoever used that remembers that it was troublesome, it was not very nice. This one is very easy, very convenient, and as you see, basically you don't just import it as it is, but you can also do some further changes here, and we can see now everything has been imported. I can now create a new item here, and under status, what we can see here, okay, status, my choice column was not nicely imported, so I still have to do some massaging to do it properly, so it doesn't actually recognize on loan or available right now, so I'm just going to keep it empty, and that's about it. And because I like my list here so much, I'm just going to favorite here right now, because I want to access this quite often. When I go back to lists again, as we can see here now, it's at the top here under my favorites. And what I can do is now when I go into a SharePoint site, for example, and I've got my list over there, I can favorite them as well, and they will show up here as well. All right, so that's more or less what I wanted to display or show you right now, demo. So I put some more resources here. I'm going to put here in the comments here, and there's also a question here. Let me just put it here. Well, got a bit big, but the links work. How about list setting? Is it the same as SharePoint list setting? Like, very good question, actually. Let me just jump back here. Let's go back to my IT assets. So we just saw, oh, there's my choice column here. What can I do with this choice column? Not much I can do directly. I can go to column settings, edit here. And I can see, for example, of choice, I can add my choices. So this is something that already tells us, yeah, that's similar to what we see in standard SharePoint lists, again, because it's actually not that much different. And what I can also do is under the gear icon, I can go to list settings. And that's where you see actually same thing as the SharePoint list, nothing fancy. I can delete this list, I can manage permissions for this list. It's all SharePoint list again in the background, with a bit more functionality as we in the front end, a bit nicer combined, etc. But again, I can also now, for example, check my version in settings and say, no versioning right now, this is not quite nice. Actually, let's enable that because I want to have 10 versions whenever I obviously do something here. So again, something that you can do, let me just confirm, yeah, has been stored. SharePoint list settings are also available then for my IT assets. So when I go back here and we just confirm version history, it's now working, and then we can see basically what's there. So again, list settings, same thing as in SharePoint. Hope that answers your question. All right, good. Any other questions here right now regarding lists? As mentioned, basically it's getting rolled out slowly over time. Chances are you will not see yet if I try the same thing, for example, in my own tenant. Let me just go over here into my OneDrive. Yeah, sign me in. I'm going to lists, this is what I see right now. I just get a blank screen because it has not been implemented yet, actually. Let me just actually check again what it says here. Yeah, there's something basically trying to run in the background, but then it gets an error. Data source is not supported, and get lists by, I think that also mentions fly this off. So right now, basically, I don't have lists actually available in my own tenant. I am on targeted release, but again, it's just getting rolled out. Some people received it, some people are still on the schedule right now, for example. Okay, any other questions right now? I'm pretty sure that in the upcoming months, we will do a bit more of a in-depth session as well, then where we'll go a bit beyond what we've seen just now. Then once more functionality is available, then we also look at Teams. You can also integrate it easily into Teams, for example. There are more things coming our way as well than for lists. There'll be an iOS app, at some point also an Android app, but again, that's basically right now, roadmap. Okay, if there are no further questions, then we're nearing the end of the evening.
All right, bye guys.